You cannot imagine. They put on that dog and pony show in October because they knew they didn't have any answers to the national debt and the condition America's in. And they literally got up there and put on a show for weeks and weeks and weeks, and all the time they knew there was nothing they could do about it. They have got to find money, and they've already made up their minds to confiscate and nationalize pension funds. Again, between now and the time of the total financial collapse, I have been told there's going to be a currency devaluation. And I will almost tell you the date in just a few moments.
You may have heard this week that Detroit is now just announced that they will be confiscating up to 80% of their pensioners' funds, or maybe I shouldn't say confiscating, but they will not make good. This normally might not be viewed as any major thing, just an unfortunate situation for a town that's already suffered much since going bankrupt. But Professor Lawrence Kotlikoff from Boston University says the United States fiscal shape is worse than Detroit, that we are at least 2 times worse off than Detroit, and this is the man who claims that we are $220 trillion at least in debt. This theme of bailouts and pension confiscation has its roots in Cyprus and then found its way up into Central Europe, is now spreading across the pond to the United States in Detroit. And I think this has profound implications that will reverberate throughout the United States. Professor Kotlikoff has introduced a bill with over 15 Nobel Prize winners and 1,000 economists endorsing it called the Inform Act. And it's an attempt to wake up our nation to our dire financial situation. And I just wanted to throw that into the ring here, sir.
Everything you have just said, Chris, is according to what I have been told by my elite friends. They've done all this intentionally. They created this debt crisis. It's been created over a period of many, many years in order to be able to bring in the New World Order the way that they want to do it. They know the time when the currency itself will fail. You've got at least a year to a year and a half when the banks are going to close and the currency will fail. Between now and then, they must confiscate the pension funds. They will take probably 30 to 50%. But I'd like to tell you what's going to happen when they do this. Now, they're doing it in Detroit. This is only the beginning. I want to state very emphatically that the federal pension fund, they're going to do the same thing, 30 to 50%. The state pension funds, the school pension funds, the private 401ks, IRAs, they are going into them. They're going to confiscate a percentage of them because the federal government must have the billions of dollars that are there, and they cannot do without it. They are in dire straits right now. So they will confiscate them, and when they do, I want to tell you what you're going to do as a person. And please bear with me on this one because I don't mean to embarrass you. There will be no riots. There will be no people running in the streets. I want to tell you why. I'm going to give you an example. A few weeks ago in Poland, they did the same thing. One morning, the people woke up. The government of Poland announced that all private pension funds, they were going to take 50% from them. There were no riots the next day. There were no riots a week later. Why? Because the following month, the people who had those pension funds received their checks as usual. That's the way they work things. They will take 30 to 50%, maybe even 80% of the pension funds in America, but they'll give you your check next month. But the thing is, 6 months to a year from now, when the pension funds do not have that money that the government stole, I'm not going to beat around the bush. I mean, it literally is stolen. Whenever they steal it, that pension fund doesn't have that money to invest in order to keep that pension fund going over a long period of time. And after 6 months to a year, maximum year and a half, those checks will not go out. By that time, they will have already done certain things in America that will have gotten you to the place where they want you. And it's so horrible what they're doing. I mean, it is dastardly what these people are creating, like a frog boiling in the pot. Then there's going to be a currency devaluation after the pension fund, more than likely. This has happened in many other countries and expect it any day. It does not mean the banks are going to close. It does not mean that you'll have to take your old currency in. It just means it's going to be worth less. And you won't feel it for maybe 30 to 60 days. Therefore, you won't riot again. You see, they don't want riots. I've said this on so many shows across the country. They want to bring in the New World Order their way. They do not want the American people tearing up everything first. They want to get you where they want you first. Again, and this one to me is more drastic than them all. The American dollar will lose its status as the world premier reserve currency. Did you catch this? They know it's going to happen. They know almost when it's going to happen. Well, this brings me then, Chris, to something that I could not have told a week ago. I could not have said it because I was sworn to secrecy. I mentioned on my website, lindseywilliams.net, and I beg you, please, even if I don't do any radio shows in the future, I will post on lindseywilliams.net everything that I can post. I do not post something there every day. By the way, it's not my website. Many of you know that back 4 years ago I was threatened by the elite because I was saying too much on my website. I had to close it down. And a man in Great Britain, of all places, said, I've got to have something about Lindsey Williams on the web. And he, on his own, I didn't have anything to do with it. He set up lindseywilliams.net. Later on, I found out who he was, began to give him certain information that I could and was able to give him. And when I'm able to post bulletins, which may be once a week, maybe once a month, maybe every day, but as I'm able to, I will tell you exactly what their intentions are next. So please go from time to time to Lindsey, Lindsey, Williams.net, not .com, but .net. Now, here goes. You've had plenty of warning to write this information down. I almost shudder as I give this. And, Chris, you feel free to break in. Maybe you've heard something about this and maybe you haven't because you're very knowledgeable of what's going on. There is going to be a global currency reset. Are you catching this? This is not a collapse of the American dollar. This will bring about the American dollar losing its status as the world premier reserve currency. This will cause Washington to be able to say to the American people, we must confiscate your pension funds because we have no more choice. The Chinese aren't showing up to buy our Federal Reserve offers of bonds and T-bills. The Japanese aren't showing up anymore. The oil-rich countries, Saudi Arabia and others, they aren't showing up anymore. They don't trust the American dollar. They've had it. They've done with it. You know what China said a week ago? And they aren't buying them anymore. And it will be an excuse when this global currency reset takes place. It will be an excuse for all the president and Congress to come out and say, folks, we have no choice. Either collapse the entire country immediately, or you're going to have to let us go into your pension funds and take them. And this will be the excuse that they use. I've already been told this. Then, shortly after that, or within the same time frame, you may have a currency devaluation. But it won't mean banks closing. They don't want that yet. It's not time. That's a year to a year and a half from now. But there are certain things that you've got to do between now and January 1. Have you noticed how much gold China is buying? And then I'm going to come back to global currency reset. Did you know that China is the largest purchaser of gold on the face of the earth? I want to give you some here. August 2013, China bought 131 metric tons of gold. September 2013, they imported 116 metric tons of gold. Last month, in fact, for the past 2 months, or I should say for the last month, China has imported 100 metric tons of gold. The year 2011 and 2012, China's been doing this because they saw what was on the horizon. They know what's going to take place. They're involved in all this. For the years 2011 and 2013, those 2 years alone, China imported 2,232 metric tons of gold in 24 months. This is equal to the world's entire mined gold supply for 1 year. You realize that China is buying all this up? Not the rest of the world. Why? They know what's about to take place. And they know that the only thing that anything can be backed by is gold and silver. And we're making no preparations in America. All we're doing is creating debt. China is creating gold. Now, the figures that I just gave you, do not include the amount of gold that is being mined within the country of China itself, which may be equal to the amount that they're importing. We don't know because they don't have to tell us how much they mine within the country. So China is definitely preparing for global currency reset. Now, I'm going to give you some statistics and facts. You just have to sit back and watch it happen. I'm begging for you to take precautions before it does. Within the next 3 months, you heard me correctly, within the next 90 days or less, it could take place tomorrow morning. It could take place a week from now. But within the next 3 months' time, the World Bank, the IMF, in conjunction with the elite, and by the way, may I say that many congressmen in Washington know this. I have this on authority from my friend, and our president knows this. He knows it good and well. They know that there's going to be a global currency reset, not collapse, not devaluation, a reset. Please catch the words carefully. And now I'll try to give you some details on this, if I may. And you'll notice that I'm picking my words very carefully because there are certain things I can say and certain things I can't say. Certain things, if I said, I'd get in trouble. So I'm trying to help all of America to know this now. This event is planned within 3 months' time, barring divine intervention. It will happen. There are 204 countries that have agreed to allow their currencies to be revalued. Please catch my wording here very carefully. 204 countries, and they've agreed with the IMF to revalue their currency. They have promised the IMF that they will keep their currency within 5% differential of each other. That means there'll be no more currency wars once this is done. They want to do away with them because they want total control for the New World Order. And in order to bring in what they want, they've got to do it this way. There will be no announcement ahead of time. You will not know this until you wake up one morning, and it's probably on every newscast out there that there has been a global currency reset. It probably won't upset you too much at the first because the banks won't be closed. Now, I'm giving you the order of events as has been told to me. The banks will not be closed. They will not ask you to bring the money in that you have between the mattress. They are not going to diminish your bank account. So more than likely, the average American will hear our president say, the world, under the auspices of the IMF, and we agree with them, is probably going to experience has just experienced a global currency reset. And you'll say, well, so what? I just checked my bank account. Everything's fine. Everything will be fine for a few weeks until people really find out what it is. Give you some examples here. Currencies are going to be reset according to the IMF. Now, many of you know who is the new financial head of the IMF as of just a matter of weeks ago. Miss Christine Lagarde from France. And she is determined this is going to happen within 90 days' time. The currencies will be reset according to the assets of the country. This is where the catch comes in. And please bear with me in trying to explain this, because it is a little technical. What are assets of Great Britain? What are the assets of Russia? What are the assets of China? What are the assets of the United States of America? And if they reset the value of the currency, and all of the other currencies of these 204 will have a differential of no more than 5%, that means that the United States dollar can have no more than a 5% differential between China's and Japan's and the European Union's. Are you beginning to get the catch here? And when this reset takes place, the reset of the currency will be based upon the assets